what to do. So we know what to do. So the whole idea of them educating us and having us think we must educate our children is a program. Because we're saying you're stupid. And we must educate you so that you may become intelligent. Y'all see the foolishness of this? And we believe this. But we don't. When a squirrel is born, we don't say that squirrel is stupid. Because we see him jumping from branch to branch naturally. We see him walking branches and jumping from tree to tree. The squirrel is not stupid when he is born. But we are stupid. That we have to teach our children because they're little idiots who can't perceive reality and absorb information for their own survival from how they perceive reality. We don't see them as that. So the whole idea of how we educate our children is madness. It's madness. If we perfect nation building, which is not an organization, but it is a way. It's not an organization. Organization comes out of way, but the way is ancient. That means it's something that's ingrained in the universe. It is a path ingrained in the universe that human beings may take on. That is a way. So nation building is not an organization, it is a way. As we fully embody the way, as we keep unlearning the process, as we embody higher consciousness, we become that atmosphere for our children. And they grow up and develop in that environment. And that is the real education. That is the real school. But if we're going to be half-minded and live as a slave, do as a slave, embrace captivity, and live out a culture that has been born out of captivity that we refuse to reject. If we're going to keep acting that out, but think we're going to teach our children some higher conscious, then we are foolish. You can only really teach what you have really become. You can't teach what you have not become. You can't teach freedom until you yourself choose to become totally free. So none of these people who have constantly made the decision to choose to become slaves, to choose to become subservient, to choose to become codependent, to become dependent, to choose to keep playing that position, the mammy, the Uncle Tom, the Sambo. How, if you have constantly choose to play this position, you're now going to teach our children now? You cannot teach them freedom. You can only teach them the best of what you know and only hope that their nature is strong enough to reject the institutionalization. So freedom has to have come from those individuals. Can be taught by those individuals who have totally become free within themselves. That's it. Those people can teach freedom. So that means that, wait a minute, we can't teach freedom in no curriculum. We must become it. 100%. What is the becomingness of it? It's not educational. Reading all these books. No. It's a matter of heart. It's a matter of human dignity. It's a matter of personal integrity. It's a matter of going within yourself and become totally sincere. Becoming totally compassionate towards your own freedom and your own well-beingness and the well-beingness of others. Becoming totally courageous and totally bold within yourself. This is freedom. You can be very educated slaves on the plantation. Very educated, with a lot of knowledge. But they didn't have the heart to be free. But you must be educated by the heart. Listen, you're not just educated mentally. You must be educated emotionally on how not to be oppressed, how not to be subservient, how not to be weak, how not to be vulnerable. So how can a heartless person educate someone else to be what? Courageous, to have a heart? They cannot. Most of these people are heartless. They say they're going to go and teach black history at school, But they let the devil tell them what they can and cannot teach. And fear losing their job. Fear their survival. They have placed their survival, their well-beingness, and their liberty in the hands of another. How can you teach black anything? Only thing you can teach is how to be a Sambo, a coon. That's all they can teach. Because that's what they're doing. I got to ask the whitey, can I teach my children who they are? By nature, if you be who you are, you can't help but to teach them who they are. You can't help but to, because you don't know anything else. So they play these subservient roles. School all black. Totally black school. Nothing but black people, nothing but black students there. They let some European downtown called the superintendent tell them what to do from a remote location. What all these black people can do. And they so samboed out, he really don't know what's going on. But they got so much loyalty and integrity to him, they still keep his program going. Don't they? What's the superintendent name here? What's his name? The white boy? Ernie or something like that? This devil is way downtown somewhere. He can't watch all these black schools if he wanted to. But they all in the building. Master don't want you to teach that now. Stick to Master's program. How can freedom ever come out of an institution like that? I don't care whether they got a red, black, green flag, whether they sing Lift Every Voice and Sing every day, whether they got Black History Month. Yeah. You already have took a subservient position. We can't teach them that. I'll get fired. You need some fire to put to your ass. You need to get fired up about who you are. So the way these curriculums set up and the people with these ideas are scared. They're not talking to us out of intellect. They're not talking to us out of strategy. They're talking to us out of fear. They are afraid. Like I said, I came out to Chicago and I had me an apartment working for corporate America. And I left all the stuff. And when I was living there, I stopped paying the landlord rent for a year. I said, something in me was like, I can't pay you rent to live on this land. So I stopped paying my landlord. And lived there a year. He would never put me out. I had developed a good relationship with him. And he was never going to put me out. But I decided to leave because I could not be under that, even that illusion. He would never put me out. I was there for a whole year. Didn't pay rent for a year. And he had become somewhat like a father figure. Like, I'm going to look out for you. And he knew, he stepped into his divine position, his real position. That it is my responsibility to house the youth and look out for the youth. Because I was very young at this time. I had to be maybe 17 or something like that. And didn't pay him rent for a whole year. But all the stuff that I bought, I left all that, walked off all of that. And began to go and say, I'm going to live off the earth. Well, ain't it cold outside? How you going to do that? You know, I had a whole group of people with me. Group of people, 30, 40 people. You know what they said? It's too cold. I can't do this. I'm not going to go through this. I'm not going to go through this process. Not me. No, we can't. That's not going to happen. And it ended up being just 2 of us that was willing to do it. Two people. And we lived off the earth in Chicago. If you can live outside in the cold in Chicago, there's nowhere you cannot survive in the United States of America. 30 below winters. If you can live out there, you can survive anywhere on the planet. Anywhere on the planet. There's no outside conditions. Once you find, and it's not, you can survive anyway. But once you get your mind to see that your survival is not as threatened as you believe. Our mind tells us that, wait, we need this condition for survival. No, you need this condition so that you can have some type of comfort. So you can have a mental level of comfort with your environment, but the body can survive. So your survival has nothing to do with your relationship to the European, paying rent and jobs and all that. That has nothing to do with your survival. We have made it our survival. How do you make a living? You ain't making no living with no white boy. When you born, the moment you came out your mother's womb, you begin to make a living. So a living has nothing to do with a job. But we begin to think that. That's what we say. We make a living. I'm fired. Now I'm going to die. They fired me from my job. I can't live anymore. This is the shock. Your landlord say he's going to evict you. You're scared. Where am I going to live? You're going to live wherever you go, Jack. Living has nothing to do with being in an apartment. Living has nothing to do with seeing your stuff set out on the curb. You'll still be alive looking at your stuff on the curb. But we think that. So they exploit our fears to keep us running in the rat race and running on the wheel. Because if I'm afraid of this, I go get the job and get this. And I'm afraid of that, and I go through this, and I'm afraid of that, and go through that. And we stay living on the wheel of fear. One fear motivating us, and we stay in it. It's totally prepared by fear. Unable to get out and manifest our Godship. Everything's fear. Fear I'm going to die. Fear I'm not going to have. Fear how people going to see me. Fear this, fear that. Then you come to a point where you raise above this fear. And you see that, wait a minute. You mean I can live and not be under Him? I'm still alive? 30 below. I'm in the sleeping bag in the park. Ice on my sleeping bag. I'm still alive? I didn't never need Him. Because now I'm centered. Once I can live, now just watch what happens. I'm centered now. I'm not reacting to my fear of survival anymore. Because now I can stop and live. Many of us have not stopped and lived. We never lived in this way. Our whole existence has been reacting to our fear of death, and it has been exploited by our employers, by landlords, by people that say, well, if you don't pay me, you're going to die. You know if you don't come to work, you're going to die. And they tell you that if you don't go to school and college and this and that other, you're going to become a drug dealer. You're going to end up dying, going to jail, like there are no other options for you. Do you hear the point I'm making? So we associate death with unplugging from white supremacy. We associate that with death. Because we feel like we're going to die. That's why we react to this or that bill. As soon as we get the bill in the mail, it's like a death experience. I got to pay this bill. Because our life, our concept of living is connected to He who is holding you captive. So He don't need a chain anymore. He don't need a whip anymore. Because your very concept of living is interconnected with the plantation now. Who I am is a slave now. In order for me to exist, I must continue to be a slave. Ain't that deep? So now in the back of our psyche, we have subconsciously identified ourselves with slaves. We have identified ourselves with somebody having to be up under Him, in a subservient position to Him, and our survival is based upon it. That's fear. That's fear. So when I stepped out of it and realized that I no longer had to be in it, that we can survive and live outside of that whole framework, then you become something else. You become something else. That moment. The moment that I was able to be out in the cold weather, in that sleeping bag, the colder it got, the colder I got. Y'all hear the point, man? Y'all don't hear me. Y'all don't hear me. In martial arts, they say if you hit the tree, then you take on the form of the tree. If you hit iron, then you take on the form of iron. I slept out in the cold, and I became cold. And the elements, once you master the elements,